Hi everybody, welcome to Sprague Woodturning. My name is Jim. If you haven't been here before, this is predominantly a turning channel. I do some flat work on occasion, but for the most part, if it doesn't go round on a lathe, I don't like doing it. This week we're going to be working with some cherry. This is a cherry crotch piece, and this is a commission for Darren, and what we're going to do is get back to my roots. We're going to do an inlay in the rim on this piece, and what I want to do is cut a groove in the rim of this, lay in some copper pipe, and inside of that copper pipe, I want to use some white alabaster, which I've got right here. And then for the rest of the inlay, I'm going to use my bluish gray soapstone that I usually use. You've seen me use here a number of times on the channel. Now this is a commission for Darren. Darren buys a bowl for his mother for each and every Christmas for a very long time. So this is a commission for Darren and his mom. So first things first, we got to get this trimmed up, and we got to make sure that I've got enough thickness in the rim so that we can inlay the copper pipe. So let's do that. I'd like to thank you all for stopping in and watch this week's video. I do upload every Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern. So hey, if you got some time, we do have a live chat function as I make my videos into premieres. So hey, if you're available, stop in and take part in the live chat. So as you watch me true up the outside of this piece, you may have noticed when I didn't true up the tenon prior to turning this. I put it in the chuck and gave it, some pretty good smacks to make sure that it wasn't loose in the chuck. I do find that, as these bowls dry, they warp and they twist. A lot of times you can get away with using the original tenon. Just make sure after it's into the chuck that you give it a few good smacks to make sure that it's not going to come loose. And for those who are not aware of it, I am what's called a twice turn turner. So I rough my bowls out thick, set them on the shelf to dry for 6 months, and then start running them through my fridge kilns. Once that's done, then I put them back on the lathe and true them up and create pieces such as this. A little bit further to go on this piece of cherry. Cherry is just an absolutely beautiful wood that will get darker and richer looking with age. And I think there's only one that's really in the category of beating it, and that's black walnut. Cherry's a very close second. I should also mention that this is the 5/8 bowl gouge by David Ellsworth, and it's made by Crown. Love Crown tools and Hunter tools, but Crown, when it comes to high-speed steel, is my go-to tool company. So as you watch me flatten the rim, I'll just briefly talk about last week's video. Very well received. Thank you for all those that watched it. And if you missed it, I will link it at the end of this video. Was really unsure of how that paper fair or Easter grass, there's a number of different names for that stuff, how it was going to work out. But it actually was a really, really cool project. So anyway, if you missed it, I will link it at the end of this video. Just checking to make sure that we've got enough thickness here at the rim. Keep in mind that, you know, you've got to go straight in with your cuts on this, so you need a fair bit of thickness in order to inlay copper pipe like that. Once that's done, now we've got it mounted on the coal jaws, and I'm going to clean up the foot here, and then that way we'll be able to stick a glue block on the bottom of this, because I plan on doing multiple coats of finish on this, and I just find it way easier to put a glue block on the bottom of this and then move it outboard, and that way you can finish it and not get your hands on the piece that you're working on. If you haven't been here before, I like to use hot melt glue to secure the waste blocks and the faceplates to the bottoms of my bowls and other things that I turn. I do have quite an inventory of these. I have about 25 of them. This one was made by a machinist years ago. It's aluminum, and I find that the threads gall up on it really bad. So I'm not. If you're going to make faceplates, the ones that I made, all you have to do is find the right size nut that will fit the spindle on your lathe, and then find really large washers and weld them together. And then once that's done, you can drill the holes in the washer portion, and then you can mount your waste block onto that, and there you go. You get your homemade faceplates. It's quite cheap to do compared to buying them from somebody else. And along with that, yeah, I've got like 25 of these. So I used to be a production turner where I would finish, you know, between 20 to 25 bowls, inlaid bowls a week. That was kind of my goal each week. And of course, I was traveling the province of Ontario here and going to all these jury art shows. So, you know, I needed a fair bit of inventory, but of course I don't really have the time to do this work so much anymore because it takes so long to shoot these YouTube videos and the editing and everything else that goes along with it. But I must say that it's nice to have a good batch of these faceplates that have different size glue blocks mounted on them, waste blocks. That way, of course, you know, the bigger the work, the larger the glue block should be. So it's always good to have a good batch of different sizes to choose from. As you watch me take out the inside of this, you'll see ridges here. And, you know, don't be concerned with ridges. You should be more concerned about tear out. That's your main concern. Literally a couple of seconds with any of those ridges that you see, and it's gone. So don't be so concerned about that. Concentrate on getting a clean cut, and then that way in the end you'll do less sanding. People really like these zoomed out views. That will give you an opportunity to see the position of the gouge, where I'm standing, how I'm holding it. For those who are curious, I'm wearing the Power Cap by JSP. It's another very common question that I get, and I'd hope to do a video on that, and I still might. It's just been a busy holiday season here so far. So anyway, I snuck away to do this voiceover and get this video uploaded so we got something to watch on Friday. Anyway, once this is done, we'll be able to move on to sanding, and then once that's done, we'll be able to cut the groove and get our first coat of finish on. What you're looking at are the 3.5-inch dipple discs from sandpaper.ca. This piece was sanded from 60 to 320. I typically do not see the need to go above 320 when you're working with just straight wood pieces. Ordinarily, if it's got some resin in it, I'll sand 60 to 800. But in this case, it wasn't required. As you can see, it does kick up a pile of dust, so that's why it's important to have a respirator of some sort on. I know that they can be quite pricey, but definitely try and get something to protect your lungs, because hey, you only got 2 of them. You should do your best to try and protect them. Getting ready to cut the inlay area here, and I'm using the 3/16" parting tool from Crown. I'm not going to cut any groove in the rim on any of my pieces until after sanding. you'll be surprised at how much materials power sanding will remove, and that's typically what I like to use. I don't like to use anything but power sanding. It will give you a superior surface, so that's why I like to do it. And anyway, I get out the calipers. I'm like, I'm going to measure this up and try and get this to fit perfectly, and I do. One consideration that you have to think about is you're going to be going straight in. So not so much of a problem on the inside of the bowl, but the further and the deeper you go on the outside of the bowl, the thinner it's going to get. And that, of course, is because of the curvature on the outside of the bowl. There. Perfect. All right, we're going to put a coat of finish on this before the inlay goes in, and that's just to prevent any CA glue staining or resin staining. Not exactly sure what I'm going to use to hold the inlay in with yet. I'll talk about why it's so important to put a coat of finish on here after I take the bowl off. But, you know, at this stage, I really lay the finish on very heavily, and of course, really heavy inside of the groove as well. So it's going to soak it up, so give it lots of finish. Well, there you go. Beautiful cherry. The queen of North American hardwoods. A little light here. Yeah, that's a little better. It's important to put this coat on, that way we won't get any resin penetration either in the inlay wicking out through the end grain, or of course if you get a run. So anyway, we'll see you tomorrow and we'll start with the inlay. Alright, I've already got a bunch of white alabaster all ready to go, so I don't think that, you know, we need to smash up any more of that. I've done this a number of times on the channel. I'll show it again, only really because, well, I don't have enough soapstone. So that's why I'm going to show it again. Anyway, all you need, steel plate, hammer. This is just a piece of 4-inch conduit, and that's to keep the material from spraying everywhere, because that will be down on top of the soapstone. And a sieve. I believe this is a 1/16 of an inch in size. To just touch briefly on why it's important to put that coat of finish on, if you get a glue run or a resin run on the end grain of this bowl, it will be very hard to sand that out. So that's why it's very important to get that coat of finish on there to prevent that resin or glue staining. I also have this midi sledgehammer that's got a really wide face on it, and it's good for just grinding this material up too. The reason why I like to run this through the sieve is so that all the material is the same size. I do find when you're doing inlays like this, if you have larger chunks of soapstone in there, then it's going to give you a more speckly look, and that's fine if that's what you're going for. But I'm going for more uniformity, so that's why I like to run it through the sieve. If there's a little bit of material like that left over, that doesn't matter. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm going to do up a bunch more of it and I'll bring you back when I'm done. Alright, so I've got a little stand here for our bowl. This is just standard 1/2-inch copper pipe. These are left over from a previous project and they've been sanded inside and out. That way there's a tooth for the resin to bond to. Some weeks you'll see me lay things out randomly. This is not one of them. I was trying to avoid the little there's some little void areas around the rim, but I didn't want to make this any shorter than it was. So I laid the pipe out north, south, east, west, and then filled it in the center. And once that was done, got out a ruler and made sure that the spacing was done correctly. It would look absolutely terrible if the spacing was off, and we've been down this road. So it's important to get this laid out properly. That way it doesn't look odd when it's done. There, that's a little finicky to do, but it's all laid out nicely now. Now what I'm going to do is just take some thin CA glue, Starbond. I'm going to set these in place so they don't move around, and then we can do the inlay. Alright, while that cures up, let's mix up some resin. Decided to go with the Pro Series to hold this inlay in. The main reason for that is so that this can go into the pressure pot and you can't do that with CA glue. And I'm finding that while CA glue from Starbond is a very important tool in my inventory, I'm finding that when it comes to having basically bubble-free inlays, combining whatever material you're working with the epoxy seems to work better. In the past, I would also take the inlay material and dump it into the resin, but a lot of times it was too liquidy in the end. So I don't know if you noticed that earlier, I actually took a bunch of the Alabaster and then dumped the epoxy into it. And that way I was able to control basically how thick it is. Where those little cracks are, I decided to throw some electrical tape on there. That way the epoxy can't weep out. And you know, you'll see that I do get epoxy on the inside of this bowl. So, you know, it's a good thing that we did have a coat of finish on there. Now the smart thing would have been to throw that in the pressure pot as it sat and let that cured, and then do a second pour with the grayish soapstone that you see there. And again, I put the soapstone in the cup and then added the resin to it. That way it's, you know, it's a lot thicker than it already was in the past. But I did make a crucial error here, and I didn't really think that it was going to be a thing at the time when I did this, but I ended up getting some of the grayish blue soapstone into the Alabaster area. I think a way around that is to just have those pipes about a 1/16 of an inch taller than the inlay, and then that way when you go to pour it in, it's not gonna have the ability to go into where the pipes are. So I'll do that in the future, and I just didn't think it was going to be a thing at the time, to be honest with you. I thought it was just going to sit on the top, and I wasn't, you know, I'd be able to trim it away. There, I think that's going to do it. A little finicky, but I really think that this is the way to do these kinds of inlays, especially with the soapstone. That way you get a good mix of soapstone and resin, where, you know, in the past I made it maybe a little too runny, and then there's resin sitting on the very top surface. All right, I'll throw this in the pressure pot and we'll be ready to work this tomorrow. See you then. Well, okay, I just pulled this out of the pressure pot, and there you should be able to see how it's dropped off. It looks very shiny, almost looks like resin. But once we get down into this a little further, the stone will come through. I'm probably going to take this down about 1/8 of an inch. Surprisingly enough, this didn't fill in all that great. Here, put that up there so you can actually see it. So that didn't fill in all that great. That one there too. Hopefully when we trim this back far enough, this won't be an issue. This one looks like it was filled in good. Anyway, I thought I would just show that before I start to whittle this down. That is the Hercules from Hunter Tool Systems. I am wearing a glove. I don't want to get any copper embedded in my hand, so that's why I'm wearing the glove. To be honest with you, this really cut very cleanly. It was not hard at all. So if you're curious how cleanly, and I know that I've shown this copper pipe on here before, but it wasn't combined with natural materials. Natural materials are typically harder to turn than resin. So, you know, you're probably going to have to rotate the cutter after this, but it absolutely cut it cleanly, and I was very happy about that. And a funny thing at this stage, I never even noticed that there was actually the bluish gray soapstone down inside the Alabaster. Never even dawned on me. It wasn't until after I was done sanding it and even putting the first coat of finish on it is when it really popped, and I said, uh-oh. Finally, on to sanding. These are 60 grit, and they are 6-inch PSA back discs. You can get these again from sandpaper.ca. And if you use my code InlayJim at checkout, you'll receive 10% off of your order. And that goes for pretty much all of my sponsors. Once I got it nice and flat, I switched back to the 3.5-inch stipple discs, and I sanded from 80 to 400. I typically don't see any need to go higher on the inlays. I do sometimes sand the inlays higher. Sometimes I don't. It really kind of depends on what I'm working with. So it's a good thing we put a coat of finish on here, because there's a bunch of epoxy spots, which of course would have been in the final look on this piece. So that just goes to show you that you really should put on a coat of finish before you do any of this inlay work. I do find if you do get a run of some sort, if it is with the thin CA glue from Starbond, it will penetrate a lot deeper than, say, the epoxy will, because the epoxy is a lot thicker. And of course that will make it a lot harder to sand away and hopefully delete. Alright, since we ground off the first coat of finish, this is technically the first coat of Waterlux gloss. There'll be a little bit in there. What do you think? I don't really, it's not really what I was going for. Man. I don't know. I'm going to let this coat of finish dry, and then I'll figure out what I'm going to do tomorrow. It's always something. But hey, at least we now know that I thought that as long as these pipes were full of that other soap, the light alabaster, that this wouldn't be an issue. Even if it was sitting on, you know, if the other material come over the top of it, like really, I didn't think that it would go deep down inside of the pipe, but it did. Anyway, it'd been interesting to know what you guys do. Would you leave it? Would you drill it out? I don't think trimming more away is going to help us. It could be quite deep down inside of there, and then you'll be into the base of it, and that's not going to work either. Anyway, I'll think on it overnight, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. Alright, so it's the next day. My wife got a hold of Darren and, you know, showed him this, and, you know, he said it looks great. But if you know me, it's wearing on me. And I know there's some people that might say, well, maybe I can grind these out. And the thing is, if you do grind these out, you're going to have to grind them completely out, because if you say just go for this portion right here and grind out that one area, well, there's going to be a witness line in this. I've been down this road. So I've got a fair bit of thickness still in this inlay. So what I think I'm going to do is just try and grind this back another 1/16 of an inch or so, and we'll call it from there. So hopefully it will get rid of a lot of the darker soapstone that's in the alabaster, and you know, I'll just feel better about it. So yeah, thinking about it overnight, I'm like, oh yeah, like that. I still got quite a bit of material there that I can turn away, and I still might have been able to do more material. So I thought, you know, this is worth a shot. And, you know, spoiler, it does improve the surface and the way these look. So I'm glad that I did it. But you can get into trouble if you go too deep with this piece. So I was happy with what it gave me, but, you know, ideally it wouldn't be there. Since we cut this back, then of course we have to resand the inlay area again. And again, this will sand it from 80 to 400. And when I put the second coat of finish on the next day, and this is really a testament to how tough and durable the Waterlux is, I noticed that there was a bunch of areas in there, and I don't know, maybe I didn't clean it good enough with the denatured alcohol before I put the next coat of finish on. Anyway, there was areas that just looked terrible, and it was like orange peely. So, you know, that usually indicates something else was in the finish. So that's 6.0 steel wool. I I did try to buff initially with the triple E buffing compound, then went to this because I wasn't getting much traction with the buffer. After I got that done, I decided to try the triple E buffing compound again to see what was going to happen. And again, you know, I was looking at it, I was like, man, I'm having a really hard time cutting this back, even after buffing it and using the 6.0 steel wool. You might be able to pick it up in there. I know it's not the easiest to, but trust me, there's just parts of the finish that just don't look good. So that means that we're going to have to take drastic measures and head back and do some sanding. Before I sanded, I figured it was probably a good practice to clean off any of that buffing compound because I don't want that to affect our sanding at all. There's 600, and I figured that that would be a high enough grit that it's not going to remove too much finish and give us the result we're looking for. All right, so I think that we've improved the look of this. I can tell that there's, if I went another 1/16 of an inch, that I think that I would get the majority of it. But the deeper this gets, the more the cherry is going to shine through this alabaster. So, you know, I'm going to call it there. Anyway, we'll get the finish on it and we'll see what it looks like. So if it had been reversed, where of course the darker soapstone would be inside the pipes, then I would have been able to cut those a lot further down and it wouldn't have been an issue. But on the other hand, then you would have been seeing the wood beneath the alabaster inlay. So, you know, the only other way would have been to completely cut the inlay out and redo it. All right, yes, it's definitely better. Some here, this one and this one are the two strong ones, but this one and this one. But gone from there, just a little speck there, a little speck there, gone, gone. Yeah, you know, I still think that it's a really cool looking bowl. That cherry is absolutely beautiful, and you can tell that there is still a lot of finish, even though I use a 600 grit on it, because it's still shiny. If this was just raw wood, it would have absorbed a lot of it by now. Still don't really know why that bubbled and orange peeled like that though. Anyway, cherry is an absolutely beautiful wood, and it will get darker and richer looking with age. See you tomorrow. Finally happy with the finish on this piece. So I just want to get rid of all that hot melt glue before I use the 3/16 parting tool to cut this away from the waste block. I typically will leave 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and that way it's still usually pretty secured. And some people ask me, why do you have a bolt that's kind of stuck on the side of your lathe? And that's just so I could judge to see if I need to put a new waste block on or not. I think I still got one more use out of this piece. And that's what it looks like. On to the vacuum chuck system from oneway.ca. And you know, again, I say this a lot, but if you do any amount of bowls, this is definitely worthwhile getting. It's a bit pricey, but man, it will help you with production. And the bottom of this piece was sanded from 120 to 320. All right, well, that's going to do it for the video. Please leave a comment down below, and let's have a last little chat about this beautiful cherry bowl. Well, all right, let's have a last little look at this bowl. It's going to be a little hard to show off the inlay area here, but hopefully the rotating footage at the end will be able to see better. After cutting it back, it certainly is a lot better than it was before. I just wish that it was completely eliminated. If you've been around here a while, you'll know it's just a me thing. It really is. Anyway, the size on this piece is 11¼ inches across, 3 inches tall, and out at the rim it's almost 1 inch thick, and it thins out a little bit as it goes in. 3 coats of Waterlux gloss. Had all kinds of trouble on the back side of this bowl. On 2 occasions I found cat hair in it, so then it had to be redone. Anyway, it's just something you live with when you got cats. There's the very bottom with all the details. And hopefully Darren's mother likes this. So I absolutely do. You can't go wrong with cherry. Cherry is a beautiful wood with its closed grain. It takes a finish really well, as you can see. It's not like working with birch or box elder or anything like that. And it is the queen of North American hardwoods. Of course, the walnut's the king. But anyway, it's a beautiful bowl, and hopefully she enjoys it. Don't forget to put designer epoxy in the comments down below to be entered into the 3-gallon giveaway at 115,000 subscribers when we get there. And of course, that's only for continental USA and Canada. And along with that, if you put a comment down below, you'll also be entered into my draw at 115,000 subscribers as well. And I ship worldwide. So if your name is selected, and doesn't matter where you are in the world, I will ship it to you at my expense. So please comment away. All right, so the last thing that I want to do before I let you go here is thank you all for your support over this past year. It's been a great year, going over 100,000 subscribers, super chats, super stickers, and the membership's growing. Thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I really do. Along with that, my sponsors, I would like to personally thank my sponsors as well: Designer Epoxy, sandpaper.ca, Starbond Adhesives, and of course Hunter Tool Systems. Thank you all for supporting my channel and providing discount codes to the people that watch my videos. Again, thank you so much for that. All right, so next week is going to be the largest pour that I've done to date, and so far so good. I'm a little concerned. It's in the pressure pot now, but we'll have to see how that goes. But it quite potentially could be the most expensive thing that I've ever made, and maybe the coolest thing I've ever made as well. So please come on back for that next week. All right, well, that's it. Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks again for watching my videos, and of course that thumbs up will always help beat the analytics. And have a great one. See you next week.